It all started with the very first married couple, Adam and Eve. They were allowed to eat any fruit in the Garden of Eden except for those of a very specific tree, those with a forbidden fruit. Eventually, Eve gave in to temptation and ate from that tree, and then so did Adam. They were cast out of the garden, and I'm glad that happened because without it, they never would have had their children, and we never would have existed. And so later on, amongst their children, broke out the very first argument, and shortly after, the very first murder. But then the human race increased, and then we have hunter gatherers, which kill animals and collect fallen fruits and nuts. And then they started getting meat from animals that died in forest fires. The heat increased the meat's nutrition, and eating it increased their intelligence until they found a way to make their own fire and cook the meat. That allowed the intelligence to climb higher and higher and higher until they managed to replicate the reproduction of plants, and then we had farms. And so with farms they didn't need to move as much, so they settled in huts and teepees and became civilizations. And then the civilizations grew and grew, starting to colonies out of build their buildings out of wood and stone. And then we had improved technology, such as the plow and tools, and some had resources that others didn't, so they traded the resources that they had with other civilizations for resources they didn't. And then trade came along, and with trade, an economy. One civilization was a bit cut off from the rest of the world, and it had some very important resources. That civilization was China, and it invented silk cloth and paper and terracotta. It was cut off by mountains, deserts, and seas. But eventually they found a way to connect, and those who did know how those who went into the civilization and found out how silk was made were either forbidden to leave or executed. But then, over time, technology improved, and then wars broke out. A part of England broke out and settled on the eastern half of North America to become America. Then they had to fight in a war to be a separate country from England, and here we are, speaking with more prominent R's and not using words like crumpets or dick. And then came the Industrial Revolution, which decreased work and increased leisure, which gave us more time to explore new ideas, and now we have very advanced technologies like this LEGO Mindstorms EV3, or this 3D printer. We now have more leisure than ever, but people are abusing it, doing drugs and committing other horrible sins like that. But if you compress the Earth's 4.5 billion year history into a day, then we went from hunting and gathering and struggling to survive to what we are now in 3 seconds. Pretty impressive, huh?